Welcome, everyone, to We Didn't Turn Out Okay. Today, I'm here with my husband, Matt Monness.
Thank you for having me back.
He's a little bit nervous. You're welcome. I begged you and dragged you. But thank you for coming back.
I'm excited to be here.
I don't even know what inspired it. I was just like,
Was I back by popular demand, or did the last guest canceled or something?
No.
Wanted all my back to school
tips.
advice.
But I guess we'll start with the populated questions. I don't know if you know, but I asked my followers to send in some questions.
Okay, great.
So instead of me
Thanks for previewing them with me.
Instead of me grilling you, it's everybody else. So we'll start with...
And I have to answer everyone?
Yeah.
I have to.
Yeah, you said you want this to be fun and interesting. Did you not? So
Yes.
that means, even when it's hard, you could do hard things.
I can.
So I asked people to fill in the blanks. What do you feel is X about your marriage after kids? And so someone asked, what do you feel is most changed about our marriage after kids?
Our marriage probably hasn't changed so much, just in terms of, it's definitely brought us closer to have kids, but I don't think our marriage has changed so much per se, and I think that's a good thing. But it's definitely brought us closer.
I feel like you probably also have amnesia, so you don't remember.
That too.
We just drove past our apartment that we had before we had kids. And so if you can picture that, what life was like then, it's hard to imagine. I mean, it was 8 years ago, but I even try to think about it. I'd come home and what would we do?
I don't know.
So there's definitely
more sex.
That question's coming. There's
Okay,
definitely more changes than just schedule, but I guess it starts there, right? There's less time and more to worry about, which of course brings us closer. But yeah, I think the core and foundation of us hasn't changed besides bringing us closer.
And we were also going out a long time before we were married too. So I would say that probably diminishes any change that would occur. But,
Yeah, that we had a real, we know each other inside and out before. It was 9 years before we got married. But I will say, even though these questions are for you, I inevitably am going to dive in. That for me, what's changed, not necessarily in our marriage, but in terms of how I view you, is that I feel like we grew up, later in life together. And I feel like we've grown up as parents together. If you think about who we were at the start of parenthood, to me, that's been the biggest change, is seeing how you've changed as a dad. In the beginning, and me as a mom. In the beginning, it was me feeling like I need to do all the work. And I feel like now I've let go a lot of control, and you've dive in a lot more.
And we're still trying to get you used to
what?
Delegating tasks.
Yes.
To other people, to me, to trusting other people to getting the job done.
Yeah, 4 days ago, Matt's I'm going to do all the groceries and the scheduling with the cleaning lady from now on. And I got defensive and was what was wrong with my grocery order? And you're no, it just is something I could take off your plate. I'm
Exactly.
not able to, I think of it as a sign of not doing it all. And you
always do too much and all at the same time. So
right.
It comes with the territory.
So yeah, that's a change.
That's
you
a change.
wanting to
agree.
do more and me letting go more.
Yes. Not too much. So don't get ahead of yourself.
What do you feel is the sexiest part of marriage after kids? Someone said sexiest.
Sexiest part? To be married to
You're
you, or just in general?
Seeing you with a messy bun, holding the kids, doing the you're supposed to say something.
Well, I always tell people you look the sexiest now than you ever have. So I think for me, just how you look and how you keep your body and how you maintain yourself, I think that's you always did that, but I think you take even more care of yourself now, and clearly it shows.
Really?
Yes.
It's so nice. Do you think that's part
I'm just trying to get laid tonight, but yeah.
Do you think that's part of parenting? Maybe?
I think being attracted to your partner is definitely a large part of being a happy couple. And I think if you're a happy couple, that makes it, you better parents, right?
Yeah.
I think that definitely, plays a role. Obviously, do your kids have to know anything about that? Obviously, no. But I think to have parents that are attracted to each other and we are sometimes kiss in front of our kids and stuff like that. So I think that's just a natural, and I think that's a very good thing. It's definitely better than the opposite. I can promise you that.
No, I fully agree. And like I said earlier, I feel like there's a lot of questions about this, so we'll probably get into other nuances around it. But just because I'm so annoying, do you feel like there's any part of me changing from like wife to mom that feels sexier, or not really?
I think like watching you juggle everything and how hard that is, and I respect that. I think that's in and of itself sexy. And I admire you every day because it's not just the work you're doing. It's not just the parenting. It's, interwoven just into your everyday life. And I still don't know when you sleep.
So all that's sexy.
Exactly.
What do you feel is the hardest about marriage after becoming parents?
The hardest. I just think there's not a lot of time for necessarily yourself. It's always, you're always doing things for other people. You're always, whether it's time, resources, money, you name it, you have to be way more selfless. And I think coming to terms with that is a big adjustment.
It's hard for me.
No, I think it's sometimes hard for me, just the opposite. And I grew up as an only child, so I was used to getting everything whenever I wanted. So now it's just the opposite. I'm trying to provide that for 2 other kids, right? And sometimes mommy too.
How do I best support you as a dad?
I mean, you do all the heavy lifting with the kids, whether that's bedtime, brushing teeth, all the stuff. I play the good cop and you definitely play the bad cop, and you do all the overtime work. So just in terms of the stuff we're doing for them, whether it's drop off, bedtime, I get the easy stuff, whether it's make breakfast, go get the car. And I realize that. And I think understanding that, and I think I'm also attentive in acknowledging that and just saying, hey, Jen, you're definitely doing more heavy lifting than I am. And just acknowledging your partner for that, I think it goes a long way.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think getting the car and making the breakfast is not the better thing. So we obviously complement.
It's a perfect match.
Yeah. We talked about this a little bit, but people want to know, since becoming parents, having time to be intimate and finding time to connect. I mean, we talked a little bit about what you find sexiest, but in terms of finding time to be intimate, of course that's changed. We've talked about how schedules were inundated now with so much more. But I would argue that I feel like our sex life actually, since becoming parents, it's ebbed and flowed, but it didn't become less.
Well, you're married to the horniest guy alive, so that's definitely a good thing for our sex life.
But I'm
it's
trying
more if
to
you're
say
awake,
that
I'll try. If you're not,
do you feel like it's changed for the worse since becoming parents?
I think we make time for it now, as before we never really did. So maybe it's a more conscious effort, but it's definitely not a department we have trouble in.
I know, but people want advice, Matt, here. So how do we find time to connect? I'll dive in a little bit. I was saying this to Matt a little bit on the way because I actually did this one part of this conversation say, are you comfortable talking about our intimacy? Because there was a lot of questions around this, which clearly means that people want to hear about it.
These are from guys or from girls?
I don't know. I didn't look at the gender, but we could argue that most of my followers are moms. And you said you were comfortable.
Maybe not for this question, though.
And I don't even think that about you, what you said. I think that it's 2 things. When you become or I'll speak personally, when I became a mom, my world revolved less around you. And it's sort of this, you want attention. And maybe that makes you desire more. I sort of feel like there's something psychological there. And not purposeful. I just am thinking about it now. And this is in no way saying
so I'm like
ignore
a dog.
Your husband. No. I'm just saying I think, as we've said, our resources become less once we become moms, and we have less to allocate. And so I feel a lot of spouses.
Scarcity value. You're right.
Yeah, just desire more, just like want to take what they can. But I will say that something that I really appreciate about you that you always have done even before we were parents, but that I appreciate since becoming a parent, is that you find moments to show me that you still desire me, like whether it's
And I think that's super important.
I'm washing my face or something and you'll come give me a kiss or like touch my back when I'm, even if I'm like, oh, not now, I still appreciate
Which is half the time.
and want that and, you know, and realize how lucky I am to have that, because it's reminders that I can still be touched in ways that aren't like needing, you know, as a mom.
With yogurt on you. And
Right. And then I will say that for me, intimacy has changed a little bit where I want to feel not like mommed out when we're intimate. And so that's hard, right? Like I want to feel.
What does that mean?
Like, you know, I don't, like you were saying with yogurt, obviously our kids are older now, but like, you know, when you first become a mom, you feel gross a lot, right? Like all the stuff you're handling with your kids, whether it's like diapers, meals, things like that. And that becomes less as they get older, but I still want to feel sexy, and that's hard to separate from parenthood and becomes a little easier as they get older. But I'm always like, no, I want to like brush my teeth, wash my feet. Like I still want that. And so I feel like coupled with all of the things that are required of us, that becomes hard to find those like perfect moments
For sure.
when we match up. So I will say that to me, that feels like the biggest change since before parenthood. Okay, moving on. What do you find hardest about having a wife on social media?
Great question. Where do we start? So I think you guys know from last time I have no social media and I've never had it. So to me, it's sort of, I don't really see it. I know obviously you're
like
creating content all the time. So I'm sort of living it through that. So I think more that it's become part of my life, just the content creation thing. You know, I don't see pictures of my kids on the internet all the time, so maybe that would bother me a little bit more if I did, because I'm definitely way more private than you, clearly. That's night and day.
Well, I'm becoming more bothered by...
But you love to share.
I love to share, but I want to be more respectful of them as they get older. And it's why I wanted this podcast to be even more and more. Like,
exactly.
I'm more concerned about sharing their life than them. But I do think there'll be a day when I...
For sure, de-emphasize them altogether.
Or just like cover faces and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall...
But it's definitely been an adjustment for me too, because like I said, this is not, you know...
Not your...
Yeah, this is not my shtick. Exactly. And I think our kids have finally come to be adjusted by it too. And I think what me and the kids love, and we'll be out in public sometimes and people will come up to you and say, hey, you know, what your content or what you're doing has been so important to us, or has been so, you know, important to us as a family. And I think me and the kids will look at each other and say, we get it. And I think that's the icing on the cake for all of us. So.
Yeah. And when you said
and we hear that a lot, so that's nice.
I mean, that's the best, and like why I do it. Like when a parent.
That's why you do it.
Yeah. And when you say the kids have finally come to terms, I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, it was more like, you know, that they don't see it as like, you know, I feel like I've always been respectful when they don't want to.
For sure.
Film
no, I think they get that you're doing it for a job to help other families, and I think that's the reason. And if that's the reason for it, they're on board with it, and I think they've come to terms with exactly that. It's no more than that.
What do you feel like is the hardest about parenting with an early childhood educator?
So I think sometimes in the heat of the moment, when either they can't do something, or they can't touch this, or they're going to break this, and you're like, oh no, you can't talk to them like that. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck about that. They just need to listen to me in the moment. I think that's probably where we have the most
in like the
difference of
moments.
Opinions. Exactly. I think you'll take a more scholarly approach. I'm more in the trenches, just trying to get it done.
And do you feel like in those moments you'd have rather I waited till it wasn't the heat of the moment? Of course, yes, but I more mean Do you
I think
understand where I'm
sometimes
coming
it's
from?
applicable what you're saying, and then there's others where I'm just like I can't disagree more. I'm just going to do it my way because it's the only way I know how to do it.
Like if they're like on the street.
You know, I think the perfect example is you had an old post where the kids were dancing on a glass table, and I said, "Come down right now," and you made a video of it, and you said, "Oh, let's dance down to make it fun," and it was two different approaches. I'm never going to say, "Oh, let's dance down to get down from the glass table," and I'm going to say, "Get down right now." And I think that's a good example of how different parenting approaches. In the heat of the moment, I thought, or I don't think yours would necessarily work. I'm not sure if it did or not. I forget. But I think that's a good example of
just
that
to, like,
question.
Give some, context to that. It's actually funny to me thinking about it now because that was like 3 years ago. So now at 5 and 7, like I also would be like, get down right now. But so when they were 2 and 5, right? Am I doing the math correctly? I felt and feel strongly at that age that responding to that in a panic is actually more dangerous and, startling, and that it takes a matter of 2 extra seconds to come over and dance with them to get down. But I will even say that, like, you also, there's a fine line, like, where you probably thought I was, like, rewarding by making it fun. It was more like I wanted things to be calm. I went to, like, set up the video and turned around and they were on the table. And, like, most people would be like, get the fuck down right now. Yeah. And I feel like for 2 and 5, I don't know the math now, would be startling and, like, panic-inducing.
So that's a good example of how our approach is. And,
yeah.
and I don't necessarily have an approach, obviously. I'm not a childhood expert.
No, but I hear what you're saying. That in that moment, we might...
Mine is way more practical and yours is sometimes more...
scholarly. I liked that.
Exactly.
I will say that also I feel like I can do a better job if I can dive in, like, not kind of preaching or, like, correcting in a moment and maybe waiting till after. So there are sometimes recently I feel like more so where I'm, like, trying to just let it ride and then talk about it later. And I feel like and then there's other times where I'm like, I want to model for the girls that I don't like
for
that
sure.
approach.
And I think a big thing that we're dealing with now is Tess losing at games or not being as good as the other person that they're playing against, whether that's, ping pong was recently something that was driving her crazy. Someone, obviously one of her friends knew how to play and she really couldn't get her, whether it was hitting the golf ball or the batting cage. Exactly. So dealing with stuff like that, I think, like you said, makes more sense dealing with right in the moment at that time. Because then they don't get it, obviously, right? And I think understanding to take a step back and to take a deep breath. If, my parents are only trying to help me here. This is not, I'm not disappointing anyone in the moment.
This is like a big topic that I feel like I could do a whole solo episode on. But for time, we'll just say that Tess can be really competitive with herself and wants to be the best at everything. She has 2 parents that aren't far off from that. But we also embrace, like, learning, trying, and, not being the best. But I think at our core, like, Matt.
No, I was definitely a sore loser as a kid.
Her reactions remind me so much of Matt as a kid, even before I knew him. But just what I would hear, like how he would bite his shirt and, like, throw things. And so that triggers me when she reacts that way.
I was not a model citizen, but the kids haven't seen that, so that's sort of embedded in them.
If anyone's listening, are there behaviors that your child will do that trigger you because you believe it came from your spouse? So in my head, I'm like, that's how Matt was, and, like,
you're probably right.
But I don't know. It just is, like,
That's a very good question. I want to hear the answer.
Out
to that.
of character for her, like this, like, sort of more gentle soul, and yet. You're looking at your watch because you don't like this topic.
No, I was just seeing what's
But at the same time,
you didn't call me out on that.
It also triggers me because I hate those moments. When you miss the shot in ping pong or something, like, I hate that feeling. And so I picture, like, a 7-year-old feeling that. So we both have, like, this, like, core competitive nature that we're dealing with her.
But we talked about it on your last podcast that I think it's very important to be a loser and understand how that feels, because you can't win every time. Life is not about that. It doesn't happen like that. There's definitely going to be setbacks no matter what the sport or what the game is, obviously. So,
but that's when like you'll try and say things like that in the moment of her like missing in the batting cage, like you can't win every time. And that's when I get like, okay, this is not that type of moment. And it's more about like, how do we get her brain to not be on fire right now? And that's really hard. No, like that's why I said it's like a whole other episode. Like we're trying out different things.
I was just going to say, what do you do?
I mean, it depends. When the batting cages thing,
is it a phase?
It was like, Tess, we're not going to play anymore if you're having too hard of a time, and then like we'll recalibrate and you know come out of the batting cages and be like, you know, if you don't miss a shot, like what's something you could do, that type of thing. Or it might just be having talks outside of the moment, as long as she's like being safe in there and losing and you know.
And also I think the other thing for Tess, and I would assume every other kid to understand, is that there's going to be a learning curve with everything, right? You're not just going to pick up a bat and be able to hit the home run. And,
right.
You know,
so it's, but in the moment that's hard to talk through. But yes, when she comes out of her turn, I'll say, do you think everyone has started out being good at everything? And there are certain things you'll start out being good at, which you have, and there's others that you have to work toward.
All right, let's go. More questions.
Okay. How does it feel when you are doing more of the parenting work?
How does it feel when I'm doing more of the parenting work? I think that question was meant for you. You definitely do more of the parenting work.
I did my hair for like 4 hours yesterday. How does it feel when I come home after that? Or you're just like, Jen deserves that?
No, like you owe me something, right? Like in return. Yeah, 4 hours, that's a lot.
Okay, so it feels like you're going to owe me something.
Yeah, you're going to owe me something.
Okay, we need
TBD.
to talk about that offline. Yeah. Because there are times when I put in a lot of hours and I'm not like, Matt owes me. But actually, I feel like you could argue that spouses do feel that way sometimes, right? Like they come home after you've been home all day and you want to like dump the kids on each other. Yeah, there's something there, like where you feel like you owe each other. I will say, though, that overall...
See, you're coming around to it.
No, that overall we both don't feel like one owes anything for the other. Like it's pretty, like pulling back and not after a 4-hour hair coloring session.
Yes.
How does it feel when kids...
Your hair looks good.
Thank you. It's a little
better look good.
How does it feel when kids disrespect in public? This is like very triggering.
Yeah, see, that's my worst topic, because I think that's, you know, a big issue, especially growing up in New York City, and, you know, I think that's a big...
everyone's always around. There's always people around.
There's just a lot of privilege and a lot of entitlement. I think that's a big issue. And I think respect goes very close, hand in hand with that.
That's interesting. So you feel like when they're disrespectful in public, you're worried it means like I'm raising like entitled, privileged brats. That's honest.
Yeah, for sure.
Is it difficult for you to take feedback from me?
No, I don't think so. Whether I listen or not is a different story.
Yeah, I feel like
no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No, it's true. Like that sometimes if you...
But you're not too preachy. I think if anything, I learn through just your actions. What's working, what's not working. And then I'll sometimes remind you like, oh, you tried that last time, that didn't work. And you'll be like, okay, thanks. So I think there's a lot of give and takes. But for the most part, I'm just watching and emulating you. If I think you're perfect.
I love you. Thank you for being so open and honest.
You're welcome.
Thank you guys for sending in your questions. And until next time.
I thought they were going to be juicier, the questions. I might have to come back a third time.
I mean, many more. There was lots of good questions. I was going to say
yes, they were all great. And thank you guys for submitting them.
Thank you guys for listening today on We Didn't Turn Out Okay.